attorney and former prosecutor Brian Silber. Brian, thanks very much for being here. You said you would have found Mr. Murdaugh not guilty. Why?
Well, good morning. My feeling about this case is that he's probably guilty. The government put on a fairly decent case. There's definitely evidence against him, no question. But this case also has a ton of reasonable doubt. I mean, there was an unknown male's DNA found under the wife's fingernails. The crime scene was not secured. We have a coroner who says he doesn't believe in thermometers and actually measured body temperature by putting his hands underneath the victim's armpits. And we have gunshot residue and blood spatter that just doesn't add up because there isn't enough of it, considering that this guy would have shot two people multiple times at extremely close range. And I would say even the allegations of his financial crimes tell me that he may have likely wronged somebody who you can't wrong, someone who's going to come and collect. He may have had a street debt that he owed. And because of all these questions, I'm just not comfortable convicting. However, I do respect the jury's decision.
Wow. Alex Murdaugh is going to be sentenced in less than 90 minutes. And I spoke with the attorney for the Satterfield family, Ronnie Richter, earlier on this program on how the community is dealing with this trial. Watch this.
His financial empire was crumbling around him, and that every time he found himself in that circumstance, he found a way to make himself a victim again. And in this case, he made himself a victim by murdering his family and garnering the sympathy of the community to cause the prosecutors to back off the other crimes that they were pursuing. But there wasn't that one trigger. What put him in jail was his decision to testify and to look straight at that jury and lie about why he had lied about not having been at the kennels.
Brian, your reaction. And don't forget, when Murdaugh was on the stand, he said at one point, I would never hurt them intentionally. Did that not do him in?
His testimony, I think, was really, really something bad. And I think the jury really held it against him. But he didn't have a choice because he did get caught in that lie. And the alternative would have just been to let that hang. He couldn't let that hang. He had to address it. And those are the facts that he had to deal with, and those are the circumstances he found himself in. Does that one fact alone make him guilty? No, but it certainly adds to the problem. It certainly makes the government's case stronger. But I don't believe his testimony was well received, and I certainly questioned it at the time.
Cheryl?
I mean, it was the jurors now that are speaking out about this verdict and why they landed this sentence in 45 minutes is because of that video. They're saying it was the video from the kennels where multiple witnesses that were on the stand said that is Alex Murdaugh's voice. And that video was on a Snapchat, and it was sent just minutes before they were murdered. And that they are all pointing to this video as saying that's when we knew that he was guilty. And you still say that you wouldn't have convicted him.
Well, my problem is the other evidence. Like, what do we do with the fact that there's another unknown male's DNA under the wife's fingernails? How do we ignore that? Why wasn't he covered in gunshot residue? Why wasn't he covered in blood? I understand he could have washed himself off, but we don't have any real evidence to establish that he did. So like a lot of people, I think he probably did it. I really do. But that's not our standard. It's a reasonable doubt. And I'm uncomfortable sending a man to prison for the rest of his life without the possibility of parole unless I can get those reasonable doubts answered. But I do, again, respect the jury's decision because, look, at the end of the day, they were the ones who sat there for 6 weeks and looked at every witness up and down, looked him in the eyes and heard his voice and saw him in person. We're all just watching it on television.
Yeah, all reasonable issues to bring up, Ryan. Thanks very much. Brian Silber. For joining us this morning. Raising reasonable doubt there.